Welcome to the Fit Vegan Podcast, the show where we help you optimize your health, fitness, and mindset on a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. My name is Maxime. I am a former triathlete, powerlifter, bodybuilder, and basketball player, and I've been vegan for over 9 years. I'm also the founder and CEO of Fit Vegan Coaching, which has helped over 500 vegans from 20 different countries to completely transform their bodies and their health. I'm excited for you to hear today's episode. Let's get into the show. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fit Vegan Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest and a good friend of mine, Dave Weale. He's the founder of Alpha Rising Men's Work. Dave, how are you doing today?
So good, man. How are you?
Good. I'm happy that I'm to have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, likewise. Stoked to be here. Always fun digging into these combos and sharing and just spreading the word about all this stuff.
Yeah, and you know, for the people that are listening, you and I go way back to I think my first 1 or 2 months in Vancouver. I think I came across you at Connor's event. Oh
yeah, Man Talks.
Yeah, Men Talks. That's what it was. Yeah, because I was looking to connect with a community of men, and it was that was the first event where I met you, and you put me in contact with you.
Totally. Yeah, those were great events. I met the majority of my community in Vancouver through those events. They attracted a lot of really cool people.
Yeah, that was
where I met Brooke too, my wife, actually. So
at the event.
Mm-hmm. Maybe probably not the same one, but one of their events. They did them every month. So and that was a big part of my inspiration for moving to Vancouver in the first place, because I'd been living in Worcester for 10 years before that, and then starting to get into entrepreneurship and this whole game, and came down for the very first Man Talks that ever happened, and just met so many such inspiring conversations and all these entrepreneurial guys and people creating impact in the world. And I was like, man, I want to hang out with people like that.
Yeah, it was definitely a great community. Mm-hmm. I love for you to share a little bit, what is the work that you do, and then we'll dive into your story, because I want people to have a background as to what got you there. So, right. So you coach high performance men doing the work. It's kind of from what we talked about in our last podcast that we did on your show, but I'll let you elaborate. Probably do a better job than I did.
Awesome. Thank you. My work, my business, my kind of passion in this world is coaching and supporting men to be their best selves, basically. So I lead a bunch of men's groups. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, and I also use breath work with all of my clients as well. So I've got a whole 6-month curriculum that I take guys through that basically just goes deep, kind of helps them rebuild a foundation, understand who they are and how to perform their best, and how to be in the world, how to be in relationship, how to communicate better, feel better, all the things. We go pretty deep on the journey, and doing breath work throughout as well to help guys get in touch with their emotions and develop their emotional intelligence, because it's a huge skill that is incredibly important that most guys haven't been trained on. And it's important if you want to relate with other humans. It's pretty important to understand your emotions and how they relate and how they work. And, it's a big area to dig into, but it's a lot of fun, and I love it.
Yeah, I think it's really important work that you're doing. And as the world is shifting, I see there's a bigger importance, and I've definitely found a ton of value in that. So, I kind of know a little bit of your story, but I don't know all of your story. I kind of met you when you were doing Grind Bar, right? And I know about a little bit of your time in Whistler. So you might kind of bring us a little bit through your journey of what got you to this place where you're I want to work with men and help them, and what made that basically your passion.
For sure. So going way back, I grew up in Ontario, and I was a skier from the time I was 2 years old, and skiing was such a big passion of mine. I was also a huge nerd and super unconfident, and the work I'm doing now, I definitely would not have guessed in a million years at that point that I was going to get into doing this. But that passion for skiing led me to Whistler when I was 18. I spent kind of my whole 20s living in Whistler, chasing a dream of being a professional skier. So I had sponsors, I competed, I filmed, I also coached skiing at a super high level. One of my guys actually won the world championships in free skiing after coaching him for about 5 years. And that was my whole life, just living in the mountains and doing that whole thing. And, so performance and helping people face their fears. And like, there's so much that I kind of learned, and I was already doing the coaching thing, but in a different capacity at that point. And then in 2012, I actually broke my neck in a mountain biking accident, which changed my path dramatically, as you might expect. That was kind of where I opened up more to spirituality, the power of energy and intention and mindset and nutrition, and I just kind of went ham on learning how to heal, because I wanted to get back skiing and moving and make as full a recovery as I could from that. And that was a huge turning point, obviously, in my life. As I said, I learned about Reiki at that point. I had someone gift me energy healing sessions, which I then went on to study afterwards, and I had another friend gift me a huge bag of cannabis to help with the healing as well, which kind of helped. I went down the plant medicine rabbit hole at that point, started learning about the capacity that it has to heal and to help with the mind as well. It was a big piece for that for me, was just that kind of helped me shift out of this fuck my life kind of mentality of the world is ending, to okay, what's next, and how do I take this, and how do I learn, how do I grow, where do I go from here, kind of all that type of stuff, and just help me be more okay and more accepting with everything. And out of that kind of came more of I was almost 30 at that point, and I knew I'd started to get into the personal development space prior to that. I'd started learning about life coaching. I went through all the landmarks, curriculum, and I was just already getting this itch that I wanted to make a transition, because, I was doing okay in the ski industry, but I wasn't I hadn't made it by any stretch. So, and that type of thing has a time limit on it for sure, as your body starts to break down and get older. And I knew I wanted to transition out of that, but I didn't exactly know what. And then the breaking the neck was the big, okay, it's time. I need to make something out of myself other than just throwing myself down mountains for a living. And and then, as we talked about before, the Man Talks events kind of showed me this whole other world of entrepreneurship and all these people doing this cool shit and creating and trying to change the world in whatever way worked best for them. So I moved to Vancouver after that, and that was where I dabbled more in entrepreneurship. I actually tried my hand at a couple network marketing businesses and failed miserably at first.
Every entrepreneur has at one point.
Because they're such they seem so great on the surface. They don't tell you that, if you're not already really good at sales and okay with burning a lot of relationships in the process, probably not a good idea. But anyways, learned a lot through that still. They're obviously big in personal development still as well. And so I got a lot out of that experience. And after that, the coaching was always there. I went to school for coaching before I actually broke my neck, because I was kind of moving towards that. But I never had the confidence to really make a business out of it. I never had the feeling of self-worth I needed to go out and get clients and to close a sale for people to, invest them in working with me so I could help them. It was always really good when I was working with people, but it's just there was that missing piece of the confidence and the self-worth to go out and believe in myself to create a business doing it. So Grind Bar came out of that. Basically, I took there were some courses I took and some things that kind of inspired me to go and just create some success for myself in a business that wasn't about teaching people how to be happy and healthy, these things. So Grind Bar was basically, I started that company as a way to learn business and to prove to myself that I could do business and build a company and create wealth and all these things. So that company took me on a wild ride. It was I had a line of CBD infused energy bars and other CBD products, and
they're great bars.
They were the bar that I wanted for myself. They were high fat, low sugar, all natural ingredients, no preservatives, anything. But the sad thing about the food industry is it's more about industry than food in a lot of ways, which I'm sure you get into in a lot of your other episodes. And anyways, without going on a huge rant, the margins to make a bar that's actually really delicious and healthy and good for you is very hard to compete with people like Cliff Bar until you're at like massive scale. So
Yeah.
that didn't go too well. I did almost sell the whole company though, because of the CBD piece with cannabis getting legalized. It was a really good timing to kind of ride that wave and almost sell to one of the legal companies out there. And we did have a deal inked, and I was actually in the transition of joining this company to work with them right at the time of legalization and just after. But then because edibles weren't going to be legal for another year, they had me wind down the whole production. I was just going to be doing R&D and creating new products for them for the next year until that was a thing. But then they backed out of the deal and everything was already shut down and cash flow was dead. So, and in that transition, in those couple months of like working for the corporate thing, you know, being a millionaire on paper once the deal had gone through and like, you know, having made it in my mind, I kind of, the switch got flipped in my head of like, okay, you did it. Now go be a coach, because you wanted to go do this so that you could go be a coach. So it was like, and then when it fell apart, like I'd already had this huge shift inside that it was like, I knew I could have gone and raised more money and got the company back up and going and spent a couple of years building it up so that I could go sell it again. But I decided that like, my heart wasn't in it anymore. I kind of, I ticked that box internally that I knew I wanted to. So I just let it all go and went back to I'd done carpentry and stuff in the years while I was building Grind Bar and before. So I went back to the tools and slowly started like working towards building my coaching practice on the side. And then, you know, fast forward kind of through COVID and all the things and built it up. And, you know, in December of 2020, me and my wife moved down to Costa Rica, and, you know, the business started taking off. I started doing well, and, you know, we've just been making it work ever since. And this year was, you know, it was bumpy. It was definitely not like I just started and everything worked out. There was a lot of stress and a lot of hard work and a lot of things that went into it. But now I'm at this point where, you know, I make a great living. I get to support a bunch of people, help them change their lives, saving relationships, helping people show up better in the world. And it's awesome. And I get to live in this beautiful place. Like I have a lemon tree on our property. We just bought a house in Costa Rica. Got a lemon tree, mango, bananas, like all this amazing fruit growing right on our land here. And I went for surfing this morning. Like, you know, it's a
good life.
It's a pretty dope life here. Very grateful. I'm blessed. But it was also like, I'm like so grateful for it. And I had to bust my ass to make it happen. You know, it took a lot of effort and a lot of work and a lot of trust and a lot of like just going for, you know, what I wanted. So it was, it's been a ride. So,
yeah. Well, like I met you like 7 years ago almost.
Yeah.
So like,
probably.
Yeah.
It's like, cause Grind Bar was like probably 2014 to 2018. About 4 years of that, so it would have been like somewhere in there. So yeah, about 7-8 years ago, probably we met.
Yeah, and I've seen the different iterations that you had to go through, and the different like obstacles that you've had. And I wasn't there when you were going to sell Grind Bar. I think I was. Where was I? Maybe it was already in Mexico. I was just taking care of Jen at the time. I think 'cause we became really close up the last few years. Yeah, Grind Bar was an awesome product, right? I remember when I biked from Vancouver to San Francisco, you guys sponsored me, and I had to cross the border with a bunch of CBD with me. It was great. They didn't open my bags. Yeah, exactly. Just protein bars. Yeah, you're right. I worked in the food industry too, and the margins to make a really good products and to compete on the shelf. Like people don't think of that, but to be at eye level, there's a big cost. And for you to have your section or like the end of a shelf, like there's a lot, you have to spend a lot of money just to be able to have your boxes there. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, it's huge. And like for what the margins need to be, I would have had to have been charging about $12 a bar to make it work.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like how people are looking at that and it's like a normal like bar, you know, it was great product, but unfortunately not a great business.
Yeah.
You know, I learned a lot in that game. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And then one other piece I didn't mention in that journey, which is very impactful to what I'm doing now, is I'd done a lot of personal development before all of that. But just after I started Grind Bar, I also got involved with what was then the Samurai Brotherhood, now the Arca Brotherhood, and started getting into men's work for the first time. And that was really like, and I stayed in throughout. I'm still involved with them. I have my own company now doing all of this as well, and lead my own groups and stuff on top of that, but I'm still involved with Arca as well. And it's a awesome organization that when I joined there was like 30 guys, and now we're over 500 around the world. And that was a huge piece for me in just really developing my masculine side, like developing consistency and healing a lot of my father wound stuff, because my biological father left before I was born, which, as I've continued to dig into it, is really a big root cause of a lot of my own self-worth issues, and, like a lot of the stuff that was had been holding me back for so long. So it's, that was like a huge piece of the journey, because like every time I wanted to stop, I kept having to go to my men's group every week, and like I had guys behind me that believed in me, that were cheering me on and calling me forward, and calling me out if I ever wanted to quit, or, it's just all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
and that was a huge piece of, obviously, that's what I'm doing now, full time, because it's powerful. Like there's something special that only men can really give other men.
Absolutely.
And most of the personal development and like teaching space, a lot of it is led by women, right? And so there's a whole different vibe that comes when it's just men working with other men and challenging each other and supporting each other. And like, for me, I was very kind of classic nice guy of like not very many boundaries, as well as like the lack of self-worth and all this stuff. And like, so part of that was learning to connect with my anger as well, and just connect with the fire inside, really.
Yeah. I can relate to 100% of what you're saying. That's why I connected with you and Connor initially in that group. And, it's grown a lot. The men's work movement has grown a lot over the past few years. Like, why do you think that is, that more men are wanting to do that work versus before?
Short answer, there's a lot of men suffering out there, really. There's it's just because there's so few men that have been taught how to express their emotions. There's a lot of men who their default is stoicism, which is just stuff it down and don't talk about it and keep moving forward, and like basically be a soldier, like hyper masculine, without learning any of the soft skills that come along with it that you need to thrive and connect with people. And as I've continued to go down this path and learn more about trauma and emotional intelligence and all these things, it's like when we suppress our emotions, in particular anger, if we never have an outlet for it, if we're never able to let it go, to connect, to like build a relationship with our emotions, then it turns into suffering. Turns, like anger in particular, when it's repressed forever, it just turns into depression and anxiety. And like it's one of the main causes of the suffering out there, is because there's a lack of connection in men, because they're not taught how to connect with people. They're not taught how to connect with themselves, let alone with other people, to build solid relationships. So there's just a lot of guys suffering out there in silence. And like, I just was on a call recently with a guy that had lost his like lifetime best friend to suicide, and he had no idea. He had this guy, they'd been friends since like they were like pre-teens, were best men in each other's weddings, had been through so much. And then this guy took his life without the other guy even knowing that that was even a thought that had crossed his mind, and that's his closest person in the whole world. So it's like,
It gave me chills.
It's so sad to see that. And, like Connor, True from Man, talks about a similar story as well, of like, it's just, we need safe places for guys to be able to talk about the shit that's going on in their lives, whether with a coach or with a group, and just have a space where they're regularly, there's people checking in on them that's, even if they don't want to necessarily, it's like when you show up every week to a group, like, if you're off, people will be like, yo, what's going on? Like, you seem like, you seem fucking pissed, or you seem like, what's going on? Like they'll ask you to bring it out. And it's this practice of getting comfortable talking about the stuff that's going on. It's not rocket science. It's just, there isn't that's not a thing in the world in normal sense. You know, there's most of the places that guys gather and spend time together as a group of guys are like either business or sports, really.
Yeah.
So it's like, or at the bar. It's like beer, babes, and blood sports is like the thing that business,
3 Bs.
the things guys talk about, you know? So it's like, there isn't, it's just not, it really, like, there's this element of, it's not safe for guys to talk about emotions in the general public. Most guys, it's demonized. It's like guys are seen as weak if you have emotions, if you talk about emotions, if you're not, you know, and again, the whole stoicism thing, but which, like, don't get me wrong, those skill sets are important to learn. Like, there's times when it's not appropriate to like break down crying. Like, sometimes you need to just get shit done and show up. Yeah. And you also need to have space to let things out and to feel and to process stuff. So it's like, it doesn't stay stuck in your system and cause suffering down the road. And I think it's like, you know, our fathers weren't having these conversations. Their fathers weren't having these conversations. So it's like, you know, we weren't taught how to do a lot of this. And now that it's just becoming more of a thing, it's just spreading, and there's more people creating different movements. There's more, you know, it's the reason it's growing so fast, I think, is because it's fucking life changing. And as soon as guys have their life changed by it, a lot of them get inspired to like share it with more people. And, you know, that's how ARCA's grown. It's just like guys start inviting guys that are in their lives. They're like, hey, like, check this thing out. It's changed my life, and it just keeps growing. And same with, you know, coaching. And there's just, it's this whole kind of like revolution in a sense of like understanding this side of the human experience. And it didn't start that long ago. Like, some of the key books that really started to tip this, like Iron John and King Warrior Magician Lover, and some of these early writings, like, they were only started to really come out in the 80s. So it's like this whole movement hasn't been around that long, even from its infancy. And now it's really only starting to tip over into something that's becoming more widespread. So it's just been, it takes time for things like this to grow, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. Well, man, you shared a lot of good stuff in there. I'm just trying to organize my thoughts, but you know, like, I definitely, from you talked about like stoicism and having a space to kind of share and open up, right? As a man, you not say like there's the ego, but there's the front, right? Like, I'm crushing in business, I'm fit, I'm crushing all of these areas, and you always want to have that front, or like, or else you're perceived as weak by society, right? But the thing is, once you gain access to some of these groups of people, and like, I've been in a bunch of them too, like some of the guys that you look up to, and they're just breaking down crying, and I'm like, oh, like, it's fine for me too to like not feel on top of my game all the time. Like, this guy is in my world crushing it, but he's still having his challenges, and it just, that relatability is awesome, because then it just feels like, oh fuck, I don't have to hold the front all the time. Like, I can't when I need to, but then it's great to like have your moments and let go, because realistically, like, no man lives at that level all the time. Like, especially if you're in business, especially if you're trying to accomplish things in your life, like, you're going to have breakdowns. You're going to have moments where 100%. You cry, you just want to like do nothing. I had one last month for 4 days. I was like, I'm just done. I'm like, I just can't do it. I'm just pushing too hard. Like, I can't do it. So,
well, and that's the piece right there, is like, it's developing the awareness to know when you're at that state and you need to take time off and you need to let yourself rest. Like, I just came through a mini version of that myself, of like, like basically just getting super sick for a few days and not being able to do anything. So I just had to like, and this is where it's different. Like, for me, when that happens, I'm like, okay, like, I'm learning to listen to my body now. So it's like, okay, when something like that happens, I'm like, okay, I guess like I'm probably pushing a little hard. I need to like pump the brakes a little bit, sleep more, don't go to the gym for a couple of days, and just like let myself rest. Like, that's something that so many guys have such trouble doing because of that mentality of like, I always need to be on, I always need to be producing, I always need to be productive. And it's almost like addiction to productivity. And like, so many guys, myself included, I'm still not
me too.
In a lot of ways, of like attaching our self-worth to our productivity, where it's like, when we have these days, like, I'm better at taking them now, but I'm still not very good at like allowing myself to be okay with it. You know, like I still
it feels weird
like
while you're taking that
I,
day.
I feel shitty, you know. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm such a bum, you know. Like I should be out doing, you know. But it's like we need those days, otherwise, like. And you see this in the guys that are able to push through that and push through that and push through that and not listen to themselves ever. That's when depression, anxiety, and even more serious things like having a heart attack. It just, you know, like your body eventually, like I have this belief that your body speaks to you always. It's like our main connection to our intuition and all these things. And you have to get better at listening as you go. And when your body has something to tell you, it starts as a whisper, and then it gets louder, and then it gets louder, and then it gets louder until it's like the cosmic 2x4 over to the head. You know, of like,
hey, listen.
Actually, totally. Like if you're not listening, eventually it's just going to stop you. You know, but then as you get better at stilling your mind, connecting with your body, with your intuition, like developing more of a meditative practice, all these things, you get better at listening once you get quieter, and then you can catch things sooner on before, like when you start to go there, you're like, okay, I need to take a day off, not like, oh damn, like I can't function at all, I need to take a week off, you know?
Yeah.
So, or beyond, like I have guys in one of the groups that I run that have hit like full on actual burnout where they're just like months they can't function. They like can't get out of bed, or they can work for like an hour a day and then they just get like crazy headaches and they have to stop, you know? And so this is the whole process, is like, how do you get better at listening to yourself so you don't have to get taken out like that? You know, I'd rather take a day off, you know, once in a while when I need it, rather than, and live a lifestyle that is more conducive to, you know, like I don't work like 80-hour weeks anymore. I work like, you know, a low amount, and I still surf, and I go to the gym, and I eat good food, and get lots of sunshine. You know, like I take care of my health is one of my top priorities, which is why we ended up moving down here in the first place. You know, because it's just, my body feels way better being down here, eating quality food and being in the sun.
Yeah. Well, I always hear about listening to the body, because I think the extreme version of that is a stroke, is a disease. Like your body does keep score to a certain extent. You know, there's because we just did it, for the people that don't know, I'll put Dave's podcast link in the description. We just did a show together for his podcast. So definitely go and listen to it. Shared some really cool stuff on there. But one thing that I just thought of is there was a point maybe 4 months ago where I was starting to feel unhappy. And like we talked about my journey, and you know my journey, we've been each other for a long time. Like I'm in a much better place than I ever thought I would be and than I was before, especially when I met you. I was sleeping on a couch when I met you. That's literally how I was living. But there was a point where I was like, I really want to scale the 3 companies that I have. And I was working like crazy. And then I was like talking to I was like, I just feel so unhappy. Like this is not fun. Like I told you how like I don't like to do something that's not fun. I was like, if it's not fun, like I just bail. I was like, I feel unhappy, but like I'm impacting people's life, which is ultimately what I want to do for us. But like I feel unhappy, and then I just have to catch myself. I was like, I'm emptying the cup out too much, and I'm not taking enough time to refill it. And I'm happy I caught it there, because eventually it could have led to me just being like, screw, I don't want to do anything anymore, right?
Yeah. Burning things to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. And being out for 3 months, like when you shared that, it's like when you get injured and you train through the injury, like you're just prolonging the pain, and eventually you'll be injured, and you can't train for 3 months. Like you can't make any form of progression or stay healthy if you're injured.
No, totally. And I learned that too many times in my ski career. You know, like my shoulder's still got a massive like bump in it that you can even see here from like separating my collarbone at my AC joint, and just like going back too soon. It was like, okay, I'm good enough, and I go and I slam down on it again, and it just never really. I've got full function of it, but it looks gnarly, and it's got like, it aches a fair bit sometimes, you know. And it's like, if I had just been more patient and actually given myself the space to rest, like it probably would have healed a lot differently.
Yeah, so. I feel like for men, I'll just speak from the men's side because we're 2 guys here, that inability to rest when there's an injury or when you're feeling burning out, because you feel like you always need to be progressing in doing something. And then if you're taking time off, there's a guilt associated to it because you're not doing everything you're supposed to do. How do you like coach people to kind of deal with that? I know it would be unique depending on like their scenario, but what's like a general rule that you've found throughout the years?
Obviously different person to person and what they need. I feel the key piece of it is really just changing the way you relate to it, in that like it's necessary. It's like going to the gym. You know, like you can't go to the gym and work out chest every single day. Like you're not gonna get gains.
Some people do.
Some people do. But it's like for your body to perform, if performance is the goal, it's like performance requires rest. You know, it's for anything. And so it's just changing the way that you relate to it, and then choosing it as well. Because when you choose to take a break and like have a day where you turn off your phone and like go and hang out in nature and go to bed early and like actually and play and like do things that fill your cup, if you're choosing that, then it's a lot more fun than getting sick or getting knocked out or having an injury or like, you know, just doing something that like knocks you down and makes you like, than not choosing it. It's like choosing it is way more fun than being forced to do it. And then, you know, having that mental shift of like, this isn't me being a bum. This isn't me just like goofing off and not moving towards what I want. This is part of me moving towards what I want. This is me like plugging in. If you just keep using your cell phone forever, it dies. You know, like you have to plug it in at night so that it keeps working the next day. And our bodies are the same. We need time to just unplug from everything else and like charge up ourselves. So just having that internal shift, which is hard. But
you just made it click for me.
You know, the other piece is like actually planning it into your time. It's not just like hoping that you get it, but like, no, this day is this, or this evening. Like a lot of guys, you know, it's like take, you know, Thursday evening and like finish work early. Cause I work with mostly entrepreneurs. It's like knock off work a little bit early and plan in like a hike with your partner or like time in nature where you're just turning off your phone and like, and getting quality time to rest and rejuvenate. And put it in the calendar. Like plan those things into your day, because if you don't, like work, especially again for entrepreneurs, like work always going to expand to fill the time available, and there's always more things to do. So if you don't plan in and put them in your calendar, like calendars are a beautiful thing and they allow us to get a lot of stuff done. But the catch is if you don't put it in the calendar, it doesn't happen. So it's like actually just scheduling it like you would any of the things that you do to be productive, because it is a thing you have to do to stay being productive. But it's just making it time for it and setting accountabilities for it. You know, that's the other beautiful thing about having a group or working one-on-one with a coach is like, you know, like we call you on it. It's like, are you going to do the thing? Okay, cool. Like if you're not, you got to show up the next week and say that you didn't do the thing, and like instead of feeling the guilt and the shame of taking time off, you're feeling the guilt and shame of breaking your word. And again, for most entrepreneurs and most men in general, integrity and keeping our word it's important. Or at least it should be. So it's like, that's a big piece of it, is just having someone that's going to hold your feet to the fire to make it happen until you've like changed your routines and your habits. And it's like, eventually you're like, oh yeah, this is great. Like I feel way better when I take a day off and, or two for, you know, have a whole weekend from time to time, you know, it's, it changes the way you show up. You have more energy. You're more excited. You're not like dragging yourself through the work week. You're actually like excited to come back after a couple of days off. So,
yeah. Well, Matt, you just made it click for me. Like as you were sharing that, I clicked and my whole body felt it. Because you shared about performance and resting, and I was like, damn, like when I did Ironman, like I didn't train 10 hours a day for 7 days a week because I wanted to be the best. Like I trained efficiently and then I rested so that I can go hard in the next session. But I couldn't go hard if I didn't rest properly. And I know it just clicked. Like I'm trying to perform in life and business. Why am I training like a rookie? Like it just clicked for me. I was like, damn, if I want to perform at this, I need rest. Because I wouldn't do that for an Ironman. I wouldn't do that for, you wouldn't do that for ski. You wouldn't ski 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like your performance would suck and you would get hurt. And damn. Yeah. It just clicked the way you said it. All right. Sometimes you have to hear something over and over again and eventually it just clicks. Like you just made it click.
Some way of wording it or whatever. It's just like, oh,
yeah.
But that's, you know, just to like add to that is it's not for most people, it's not like our fault. Because there's a lot of cultural programming to the opposite. You know, there's guys like Gary Vee out there that love him and I appreciate, and David Goggins, and like the hyper masculine warrior culture, like go until you fucking drop dead, like sleep when you're dead, like that whole mentality is putting people in the hospital. Because like, I appreciate it, and like there are a lot of guys out there that are way on the other side and like just super soft and not doing anything, and like sometimes that can be inspiring for them to like get up and go and like actually work out or actually like create a business of their own or something like that. But you know, it requires balance, because some people are wired differently. Some people, like their balance of like how hard they can work is just like Gary Vee, for instance, like he just loves it and he just thrives on that. Apparently, you know, he gets a lot out of that. And same with Goggins. It's just like, but there's people like that are, for every Goggins and Gary Vee, there's a ton of guys that if they tried to work that hard and push themselves that hard, they'd end in the hospital. You know?
Yeah.
So
I think it depends what you want in life too. Right? Like it's fine to not be at Gary Vee's level. It's fine to not be at David Goggins' level. It's a personal choice. But if the choice is made out of like laziness, then it's not okay. But if you're doing the actions and you discover your limit of like, hey, like I'm good here, like this amount of money, this lifestyle, this amount of working hours, I'm happy with that. If I do more, I'm miserable. Then I feel like everyone has their different cap of like where that is.
Totally. And you know, if it depends what your goals are, like you're saying, it's like if you want to be the best in the world, for sure, you're going to have to push yourself harder than most people in the world. All of the people.
Sacrifice relationships. Like, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be given up.
If that goal in itself, in my opinion, is kind of flawed, because like we talked about when you came on, like the thing, like being that place or getting the Rolex or getting like whatever those ego rewards doesn't equal happiness. And like, I think that's the shift, is like more people need to start actually making health and happiness a priority. And like Goggins has been divorced like 3 times.
I didn't know that. You know, makes sense though.
And like, I'd be shocked I don't know, like not to like talk badly of him, but like I would be surprised if he was like deeply happy and fulfilled and isn't trying to like, like having learned as much about trauma and that whole lens of healing and why so many people are motivated to do different things, like he's probably got some deep, dark stuff that he's trying to outrun still, you know, and instead of just healing so he can be happy. And like, this happens in a lot of super high performers, is you look at their history and they were like abused as a kid, or like had terrible relationships with their parents, or like, you know, just, it's like, there's so many people out there just trying to prove something to someone instead of trying to just be happy and enjoy their lives and create impact and like be of service. And, you know, like the model of what it takes to be happy is just not really taught in school, or it's not promoted in the media. Like, you know, it's very much counterculture nowadays to like do what we're doing, to work online, to not work as much, to be able to eat good food and like raise a family, like living off the land and all these kind of things, you know. But you know, having solid relationships and being healthy and, you know, sleeping, like these are all things that lead to actually feeling happy and, you know, being of service in the world. Again, it's like, it's selfish in some ways, ironically, to make your life more of service, because it feels really good and you become really happy when you're dedicating your time to helping other people. And so again, it's just like, I feel like we just need some big shifts culturally around what's actually important. And we're starting to see that, but it's just, there's still like, most of culture is still focused on like the car and the house and like being better than everybody else. And like, that's the American dream still, I feel. So
Yeah. And you made me think of, I think Jim Carrey. He's like, I wish everyone could be rich and famous to see that there's nothing to it. And it's tough, right? It's kind of like when you're, I'll bring it down to like a really like childish analogy. When your parents tell you to like not touch the stove and then you touch it once, you're like, oh shit, this is hot. This hurts. Like, I'm not going to touch it. Even though your parents told you that it was hot. I feel like the money and success part is kind of like that. Like, to me, I've had more success than I ever thought I would, which is nothing compared to what's happening in the world, right? There's people that it's crazy. But for me, once I passed what I thought would be success, I touched the stove and I was like, oh, like they're right. Like, it doesn't change anything. Like, the internal things that the trauma, the things that I have to deal with are still there, regardless of how successful one becomes or how elevated one becomes. And I think unfortunately it's just like you got to touch the stove to know it's hot and that it hurts.
Yeah.
And most people are trying to have to experience it, because then once you do experience it, then your focus shifts. So like, okay, well, if this amount of like money or time freedom or location freedom didn't solve it, like, then what's the focus? And I think 100% right. Like, that impact, once you start giving back, that fills your cup way more than any amount of like business success, right? Which by default comes, like, it comes with it by default, but that's the actual thing that fills your cup.
Like, not all businesses. That's a big part of why the world's so messed up right now, is there's so many people that are solely focused on making money, you know, and it's like making money doing things that hurt the world or hurt people. Like, you know, tobacco industry is massive. Pharmaceutical industry is like ruining so many lives. And like, there's all these examples of that, but I feel like we're going through a shift of that culturally right now. And like, money is still important. Like, it's not like, I'm not an advocate of like money's dumb and don't, like, we should all just like, you know, barter and live off the land. Money is important and it's fun, and it's also like, for a lot of people, connected to their self-worth. And there's like a certain point though where money doesn't, like, beyond a certain amount doesn't make that much more difference, and it does make you happier up to, you know, it's like, I don't know, there's studies, older ones, that's probably around 100K now. Like, if you're making less than that, your life will get quite a bit better once you're making around that or more. But then once you're making like 200, 300, 400, it's still going to be more fun, and you'll get to do more, you know, like, do more fun things, whatever. But then it's like, it's not exponentially increasing at that point. At that point, you want to start just having your time back so you can be with people and like enjoy life. And, you know, it's like,
and
use the money to create impact and help people.
Yeah, and give back, right? Like, that's like, exactly. I am 100% like for making a ton of money, because then I can help more people that were in Jen and I's situation, which is, you know, every month we donate to, I randomly select the members and I tell them, like, go find a family that's battling cancer and we're going to donate to them. So every month we pick a random member that picks a family that's either connected to them or a complete stranger. Like, that feels really great, because I remember being in that position. If someone sent me like $500 or $1,000, I'd be like, oh my God, that like covers all the treatments for this amount of time, or it helps to buy like the organic, nice foods that we need to buy for. So yeah, I think it depends what you want to do with it, right? If it's like that ego fulfilling, like trying to elevate yourself for the wrong reasons. Well, everyone's on their journey, but yeah, it's nice if you use it to give back.
Well, it feels better, right? Because like people inevitably, that's where the recipe is just wrong in most people's heads. It's like, they think it's like, if I get to that point, if I have the car, if I have the house, if I have all this money coming in, if I'm a millionaire, then I will be happy. Like, if you get to the bottom of most people's motivations, that's actually why they're trying to do it. They think if they're better than everyone else, they're gonna be happy. But like you talked about, you know, the Rolex moment, when you actually achieve that, then you realize you're like, crap, like, I'm not happy. and like you said, it often takes people getting to that point to realize that's not what it's about, because, you know, it's like, even like I'm not a millionaire by any stretch, but like we were able to buy a house down here, and I've got a nice truck, and I've got this beautiful life, but like, and for so long that was like in my kind of morning manifestation track. It was on the vision board. It was like working towards it for so long, and then we got it, and it's like, oh crap, now I need to like do all this work on that house, and I need to like, oh, we got to change this, and we got to do that, and we got to, you know, with these windows, the door, you know, it's like, why am I not happy all of a sudden? You know, and it's like, because we have to cultivate happiness. We have to cultivate gratitude. That's like just having a practice of actually focusing on the things you're grateful for and focusing on the things that make you happy in life and celebrating them. And so many people don't have that. They're just addicted to the chasing that next carrot and like moving towards the goal. And they never take any time to actually enjoy what they have. And, you know, that's again, a big part of the rest piece, coming back to that one, is like just taking time to be in appreciation for everything you have and not trying to like push towards the next thing all the time. It's that's a big piece of the recipe for being happy. You know?
Yeah.
And the more people focus on that, the more you're actually going to be able to get it. That's the thing. It's like you need to shift the goalposts to happy and fulfilled. If you want to have that, there's not some amount of money that will eventually make you feel that way. You have to start doing things that are aligned with that if you want to make it happen.
Yeah. I want to add a fitness component to it, because
for sure,
some people think that reaching a certain body weight or looking a certain way will like make that kind of like getting the $1 million or building a business, that it'll make them happy. And then they just get there and they're like, I feel the exact same way, I'm just leaner. And like, that was me when I originally transformed. Right? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you're going to live longer. You're going to be healthier. Like, your body, you're not limited by your body. There's a ton of benefit to it. But if the end goal is that once I get to this body type, it will solve everything, it will be different, like, it won't. And that's a big thing that people don't realize. They just think that like, oh, it'll, once I'm lean, like, I'm good. Like, if you're insecure, it'll still be insecure, but insecure with a six pack. Like, that's basically what's going to happen. Yeah,
totally. It like you said, it is a piece of it. You know, like I feel but not like I'm in great shape, but probably in better shape than I've ever been in. And like I enjoy how I feel. I enjoy that I'm able to go surfing and able to go to jiu-jitsu and go to the gym and and I feel better after training, you know, like after just pushing some weight and getting into that like primal energy of like, you know, like I like that feeling, and that translates into like, that takes me and helps me create and helps me, you know, all the things, and doing it for that feeling versus like looking a certain way in the mirror. And don't get me wrong, I like how I look in the mirror as well, but it's like, that's not, that's not
only
the main goal.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I'm aiming for like, especially for, just to like touch on that, you know, it's like we have this whole industry that like the whole fitness competition industry that again, like makes the goal being like 0% body fat with like spray tanned and like,
I have done it once.
Like,
get it.
Totally. You know, and like, but you have to torture yourself to get into that ideal state, but like, it's not sustainable at all. Like most people are like full on fasting for a couple of days before and like, you know, not drinking water to like get all the water to their system. And it's like, why is the goal this completely unsustainable form that like, and they feel terrible. You're like,
oh, you feel like shit. Like you don't feel good.
It's so grumpy and crabby and like, you know, you'd suffer so much to like achieve this photo of look at how ripped I got. And it's like, cool, but like you look at any of those people a week later and they've already you know,
they puffed up.
Like, it's like, but so again, I try to have my goals be like, I'm always still trying to like eat well and kind of move and stay fit and all these things, but it's more again for just performing well all the time and having and feeling good. Like when I move my body, I feel better. When I eat well, I feel better. When I eat a bunch of junk food or have a couple drinks one night, I don't feel as good the next day. You know, and I want to just feel well again, back to the very beginning, to perform better. You know, like I want my body to work well. I want to be able to connect well. I want to be able to make love for ages. I want to like have the stamina and the energy to do all the things I want to do. And eating well and moving your body regularly and sleeping well are like huge components of that. So,
yeah. Oh, I want to ask you one last question for the show. And I also want to hear, so from people that are listening to the podcast episode, if I'm going to have Dave back, because I have so many more questions. I have so many more questions I want to ask, but I have to go after because I have a live training to do. If there's like one or two ways where you talked like way earlier in the conversation of men needing to like show up when it's time, but being able to release, right? To have those moments of that safe space. Like, what does that look like? What are like one or two ways that like people can take away, and then we can dive deeper into potentially in the next episode?
Well, the gimmies are like join a men's group, hire a coach, do some breath work, like go into a space where you're encouraged to do that. Other than that, like things that people could take on their own, it's just about having outlets. So I get a lot of guys to get into some form of martial arts, in particular, like boxing or like some type of striking sport,
like a primal, like
have
punching
that
something.
primal energy, and like you can tap into that, you can move that energy, or like you're encouraged to, push yourself and like move some of that. That's a big one. The other one is like for guys in particular, like anger has been very demonized in society, and having like screaming, just like when you're super pissed, just fucking raging and like letting out a big primal scream is so healing. And so we do a lot of this, and this like one like key piece on that is like anger is not bad, aggression is bad. Anger pointed at someone, like I want you to hurt, like I'm angry at you. That's not a good thing. Like that's hurting someone else. Like I hurt, so I want you to hurt. But anger is totally fine. So just expressing anger, like I'm fucking angry.
Yeah.
Like letting that out is super healing. And so just having a practice of that, like you can grab a pillow and scream into a pillow. You can, in your car is a really good place because it's fairly soundproof.
That's my
like
go-to.
When you're pissed, just let it out, fucking scream. And you'll be surprised like how much better you feel after screaming or just like hitting the fucking bed and just like smashing a bit and letting it into your system, so that you can then, then take a few breaths after, come back, calm, cultivate, like just feel how it is in your body after letting some of that out. It's a game changer. But again, most people, they're afraid. A lot of people are, not most, a lot of guys in particular are afraid of their anger because they're afraid of hurting someone. But if you're just letting it out into the universe, as opposed to like pointing it at someone, or screaming in someone's face, then you're not hurting anyone, or punching a wall or hurting yourself with it. Just like letting it move through your system. That's one of the biggest pieces I'd say for a lot of guys to try out. And as I said, back to the other one is like, get support, get a coach, do some breath work, go to a class, go join a men's group. Because again, again, like most people don't have environments where they're encouraged to be in that energy, and they're encouraged to express themselves, versus when you surround yourself, when you're in a group of guys that are all doing this, all talking about this stuff and all letting things out, you are encouraged. You're like, oh, this is normal. So, okay. And
when there's a willingness, when there's a willingness from everyone to do it, and you're not going to be judged because everyone's ready to do it and to show up authentically. I want to reinforce that last point, because the screaming part, I discovered that like last year. I did my first mushroom ceremony when I was in LA, which was like after Jen passed away, and it was a really like, there was a moment where the guy was playing the drums, and he was like getting louder and louder, and everyone was screaming, and I could feel myself like wanting to scream, but I'm like, me, like I'm pretty shy, like I'm outgoing on camera, like I can be outgoing, but naturally I'm more of a shy person, and I was like, I don't want to scream, like that's not me, I'm not going to scream. And eventually I started screaming, and I was like, and I was like, I sound so stupid right now. Let me just like let it out, man, like a lion. Like that shit went out, and it just like, it was a godlike sound. I've never made that sound with my throat ever, and it felt so good. And then you just feel like alive. And now when I have those moments, like, shit happens in business, and just, life hits you sometimes. I just go for a drive, and like I make sure I'm driving because I don't want to like stay at a red light and like scream in my car, but I'll just drive and I'll just like let it out. And that feeling of just like, like just primal letting it out, just like fuck this, and then just breathing and then coming back to normal after feels awesome. So that's definitely my goal.
And it's accessible to you all the time as well. This isn't like, you can obviously like be in a group or do a session or like, you know, have support on that, but you can just scream. And it's, again, it's like that cultural programming of like, I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't scream. Like I shouldn't, I'm not like, I'm more in control than that. You know, like whatever story you created that's like, it's bad to do it, just moving through that. Because the other piece, just to end on that, not just for letting things out, but for a lot of the guys that are on more of like the nice guy spectrum or like not getting what they want out of life as much, that's your anger is a big connection to your power as well. Like you said, you felt like a fucking god when you were like, and like roaring and letting that out. And like a lot of guys have just been, they're so disconnected from that sense of inner power, and it's very closely related to your anger. So getting to make friends with your anger will also help you step more into your power and get more of what you want in life if you're someone that's on that side. Like that was me, 100%. So
same boat as you. So definitely a powerful experience. Great, Dave. Well, man, awesome conversation. I love talking about this stuff. You're actually the first guest that I've had on where we didn't talk about like necessarily like fitness or nutrition. So I'm really happy. There's a refreshing conversation.
Likewise.
Massive thank you for jumping on the show. Definitely want to have you back on because there's some more that I'd like to talk, because I think it's a topic that's in demand, and I do have, it's probably like 50-50 of men and women that listen to the show.
Awesome.
And so
I'm all about like this conversation being like for like being listened to by women as well, because most, if not all of my clients and people that join men's groups are coming through a woman at some, like, you know, it's
hey,
like,
you need this.
Either we want to keep a relationship, we want to fix the relationship, or a woman is like, you need to do this thing, otherwise we're done. It's like, it's often motivated by that. And so thank you to all the women watching as well. And like, you know, kick your guy in the ass and get him to go join a men's group.
It's really powerful. Dave, thank you very much, man. And then for everyone listening, all the links will be down below. I know you have a Facebook group, you have your podcast, your Instagram, your website. I'll make sure to link everything so you can check him out. And Dave, I will see you. We'll book another episode in.
Epic. Thanks so much, brother. It's been a pleasure. And looking forward to chatting more.
Same here.